Well, fight fans, we're back for yet another episode of Shootin' the Shit here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. I would have thought we'd be canceled by now, but Keith Schillen, for some reason, continues to let me do this terribly, terrible, awful show. We're back today. We are back with another Invicta fighter. I swear to God, we get more women on this show than we do men. I think they're just better at answering their texts and their Twitters. We have a woman who's fighting this weekend on the Invicta card. Kaitlin Young will be fighting at 145 against Latoya Walker. Why did I just say it, Latoya Young? I just took your last name. Latoya Walker. That's why this is the worst show on the air. Kaitlin, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
No complaints other than the usual screw-ups here at the beginning of the episode. Before we get started, I will do our usual plug here. Most of our fans are based out of Illinois, so if you guys are looking for home improvement and construction work, do check out Cornelius & Sons LLC on Facebook.com. They'll take care of any of your outdoor or indoor home construction needs. Ask for Raul. They'll give you a quote, and he'll come over and do good work for you. Like I said, he's over here almost every other weekend helping me out with stuff on the house, so I always feel like I have to give him a plug. So again, that is Cornelius & Sons LLC on Facebook. Again, ask for Raul. So, Kaitlin, before we get into anything, this is actually really weird. The last time I spoke to you was 2012 or 13, and it was, I think, for your fight against Leslie Smith.
First one. Second one? First one?
Second, whoever, the one in it was, were they both in Invicta?
Yes.
Okay, then I don't remember exactly which one, but that was when I was in college. So that'll tell you
how
long
was time.
Back then. Yeah, so we have actually we didn't have you on the show because it wasn't around then, but I did interview you for, I believe it was the MMA Corner at the time. So we speak again. Hopefully, I've evolved a little bit since then, which is probably not helping. I'm having a PBR right now. So
let her rip.
First things first, I always try to get this out of the way, the COVID-19 deal. How is training, obviously you have a fight coming up, this weekend. How has training been affected? And I know you just said you just opened up a gym, so if you'd like to plug that gym and tell us how that opening has gone, please feel free.
Yeah, so we opened a gym. It's primarily Thai boxing, but we do, obviously I train for MMA fights there, and we have a couple other MMA fighters that also do their striking there. But we opened 2 weeks before the shutdown, to the day, in Minnesota. We lucked out. We had some really awesome members who sort of hung with us through that. So we were able to reopen. Just luckily, we had happened to order a ton of heavy bags so we could socially distance. Yeah. So, but it turned out to be super helpful. I didn't think I'd probably be fighting right away, but it's awesome that Invicta's still doing shows. So it's nice having the keys and being able to just go in there and train when I want.
That's advantageous for sure, because when I was talking to Emily Ducati, her boyfriend owns the gym she goes to, so she was able to train, because obviously not everyone's going to be there. So it's kind of the same thing for you. So that's lucky. And you were saying you were kind of surprised Invicta is starting this early after lockdowns that ended. How many weeks of training camp did you get? How much notice did you get?
I had a little bit of an idea that it might be coming. I want to say I had 6 or 7 weeks, but of course, I indulged in some extra chow during who didn't during the lockdowns. Breakfast pizzas, man, they were the bane of my existence, and I'm regretting it now.
Well, we know all about breakfast pizzas down here. Casey's General Store is the best breakfast pizza.
My goodness. So yeah, I mean, apart from having more weight to lose than usual, it's pretty good. Our team was still getting together and doing sprints and stuff the whole time outdoors, because Illinois is not quite different from Minnesota in that March it was finally getting nice enough to do stuff outside at least. If this had hit in November, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, the first reported cases were backdated to December, November, but obviously we didn't know about it. So if they were shutting down in November, a lot of people, especially fighters, were going to have issues because you can't do any cardio outside, and inside was pretty much restricted at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's actually in some ways, training camp has been easier in that this gym, and then I go down to another great grappling gym called M Theory in St. Louis Park. The population of the regular classes has been down, which is bad for business, obviously, for us too, but it's great for training for a fight because you have more freedom in the gym. So, and I have really, really great partners. So, and it's a smaller circle than I would normally train with, but apart from that, just because we're trying to be careful, but apart from that, it's actually in some ways been easier. Believe it or not.
Yeah, for sure. Now, being a gym owner, is that going to cut into your focus? Is that not necessarily a conflict of interest, because that's not the right word, but is it a distraction?
It's a distraction. It could be. So my partner Ryan, we've been together 14 years or something. He's a retired fighter. And he's been amazing, just taking everything over pretty much. I've been kind of a turd around the gym as far as helping out goes, like I'll empty trashes here or there, but I've been mostly useless the last couple weeks anyway. So he's taken over, and a lot of my teammates are taking some classes and stuff, just kind of lightening the load on us while we get closer to the fights. So we're lucky. We have a pretty tight-knit group there that we can trust, so it's nice.
For sure. And so moving on from that and talking about another, we'll call inactivity, because COVID did cause a lot of inactivity. By the way, I'm the only person that lost weight during COVID. I don't know how that fucking works.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's probably 215 when this started, and right now I'm probably about anywhere between 205 and 207, 208.
That's crazy.
I don't know what's going on, but anyways, before you had actually returned from I guess we would call it a brief retirement for a couple of years there. Why did you step away from the sport, and then what made you come back?
So surely that's probably what it looked like, because nobody gives a shit about Thai boxing, but I was Thai boxing the whole time. So I was still fighting K1 rules and Muay Thai, kind of whatever I could get my hands on. Primarily abroad, but I had a few fights here as well. So it's not something I had set out to do. I had just started working with this trainer who was amazing. His name's Cornpet. And, I ended up training with him, a couple of times a day. And then I had an offer from Lion Fight, and it was just a really great experience getting to see that real Thai style of training and kind of dive into that. So I did that for a few years, was having fun, started running into more difficulty getting matchups and that kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? I have a different mindset now. I want to try MMA again. I want to get back to it.
So I know there's not as much talent, especially in your weight class in MMA. What is the talent like in Muay Thai and in women's kickboxing? Because I'd have to think it's even more scarce than that compared to MMA.
It is, but only because like the pay is nothing, and it's like compared to MMA. And then you have to travel. Like if you want to fight, the tough girls my size are in Europe. There are a couple Thai women, but obviously 145 is pretty big for a female there. So there aren't many. But you can fight other foreigners there and that kind of thing. So it ends up being really expensive to go do it, because you have to go there. These are smaller budget shows. Like in Thailand, like if you make a couple $100 a fight, that's pretty good. So it's very different. And it's somebody like just tough as hell too, 5 rounds with them. So it's you really got to want to do it because you want to fight, not because you're trying to get famous, not any of that stuff being, having it on your Facebook profile. You really got to want to do it. And I think there are definitely some women like that, but with the opportunity being less, just so many women that are great at Thai boxing are shuffling over to MMA. You see like Loma Lukbunmi. I don't know if you know who she is. I actually met her at Desert and signed her to Invicta.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. But she has, I don't know, like 300 fights or something. 21 years old, doesn't have anywhere to fight. No, she beats everybody. Mm-hmm. So she transitions to MMA.
Right, because she eventually made it to the UFC. So, and another one I think of is Denise Kielholtz, who's in Bellator.
Yes, absolutely.
World champion, and then she had to go to MMA because there was just more money there.
And if you're like some of the divisions, Glory has a nice 122 division, but there's one weight class. It's kind of like MMA used to be maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
For women. So it's just unfortunately I'm not there. I love the sport, but man, It's just not there.
Yeah, and there has to be pay. I totally understand that. And you're kind of right. Like, I used to go to the Glory shows whenever they came to Chicago, and I swear to God, the same woman fighter was always on every show. And I was just, it was just crazy. Her and Tiffany Van Soest, those were the only two that we ever saw, on those kickboxing shows that were female, and then whoever they brought in to fight them. So, now you kind of mentioned, that you had signed or helped sign, Loma to that contract. So kind of explain how you got that office job, or that front office job, as we call it in sports, with Invicta. And then, just kind of tell everybody why you ended up stepping away. Obviously, it probably had something to do with your MMA career coming back.
Yeah. Shannon just kind of called me out of the blue, honestly. I had done some local matchmaking. But she had asked me what I was up to. I don't even know if she knew that I was Thai boxing at the time, maybe. And at the time, I didn't have any intent to go back to MMA. So I went in. Julie was still in at the time. Initially, I was just going to help Julie, but she ended up going back to grad school and stepping away. So, but that was a really incredible experience. Something I wish a lot of young fighters could see from that side of it, because, man, you sure learn a lot. And then, yeah, obviously, when I decided I was going to come back into MMA, because I'm 34 years old. Clock's ticking. So I wanted to get my feet back in there before the window closed. And Shannon and I talked about it, and it just is, as much as I love the company, I believe in what she's doing there. It just would be a conflict of interest to still be making decisions, talking to managers, all these people that could be a potential opponent, or even, something like that. So, we'll see what the future holds, but obviously it's a great company now. I'm back fighting there.
Of course. And then your comeback fight was a fight that I watched, and I really enjoyed, the one at Ryzen against Reina Maira. I mean, she was heavily hyped. I mean, I know she's partially a pro wrestler, but she's also a legitimate martial artist. At the time, I believe she had only lost once out of maybe 10 fights.
Yeah. Very good judo.
Yes. Yeah. Very good grappler in general. And you came in there, and I feel like a lot of times the Japanese promotions bring in people that they just want to showcase their own fighter, and you came in and beat her, and that really kind of relaunched your MMA career, because that was your first fight in, 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, I had actually called them up and asked for that fight. And she's very tough, but she's also young. And I remember being like a younger fighter, and sometimes if you can make them feel like their specialty isn't working right away, it's not the same if you try to do the same thing to somebody who's 28 or 30.
Right.
So, it was a pretty cool experience. Fighting in Japan was awesome. It's quiet. You can hear your corner. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and now on tap, you took a couple fights with Invicta in your return after that fight, and now you find yourself with a fight against another person who has taken a long layoff from the sport, Latoya Walker. And, she was undefeated at one point, and with featherweight being as thin as it was, a lot of people were like, oh, she could be someone that challenges for the title. She's now 40, right? Mm-hmm. And she has not fought since 2016, so she hasn't fought in 4 years. So how did this match come about? I mean, I don't know if you have any background on it, and what do you see in Latoya Walker, and how do you see this fight going?
I think she asked for it. I think she asked Shannon for it. I didn't know if she would ever come back. I was always hoping she would. Even before I was back in MMA, like, man, we need some more featherweights. So I'm glad she's coming back. She's heavy-handed. She's a Golden Gloves boxer before she got into MMA. So I think obviously she's going to try to beat me with hands. But the thing is, sometimes when people are away for 4 years, it's really hard to watch that tape and know for sure what's coming. There are certain habits that are still going to be there, but they're going to be quite positive. Quite different.
Yeah. Do you think her age is going to be a major
She was supposed to fight. I don't think it affects women as much as it does men, because obviously testosterone dropping really hurts you in fighting. Estrogen dropping doesn't. But it can. So as far as with speed and that kind of thing. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what it's like. I'm willing to bet she's strong, and she's never been somebody who's like uses a speed game like a young person's, the sort of fighting style that only works when you're young, rather.
Sure.
So I think she's going to come in and try to throw bombs, honestly.
Do you think that, obviously because you have a more diverse striking background, because you have the kickboxing and the Muay Thai, do you think that the kicks are going to be crucial here against somebody who uses more or less more hands?
Possibly. We'll see, though, because she also, like when you watch some of her fights with other kickboxers, she's pretty well grounded. She's been able to disrupt their balance very well. So we'll see. I don't know if it'll be kicks. I think structure is going to be very important for me. Yes. And I obviously, I would say that's something that's true of the division. She's got a great right hand. She's got a good jab, great right hand. But I've finished fights with everything.
Sure.
So
do you
I have a lot more in my toolbox. Possibly. Quite possibly.
Great. All right, so let's look at the two other top fights on this card. And if you don't want to give predictions because you feel that's not your thing, that's fine. But let's just kind of examine these fights. The co-main event, a flyweight bout between Erin Blanchfield, who, if I'm not mistaken, is only like 21 years old.
Yeah.
She is taking on Brogan Sanchez, who's also pretty young, not as young, obviously, but who is taking this fight on late notice, stepping in for Stephanie Geltmacher. So, I don't know, kind of give me your thoughts on this fight. If you want to throw a prediction my way, go for it.
I won't give a prediction. I think it's a pretty exciting fight. Like I was just saying, age could be a factor or it could not. This young group of fighters coming up really are quite dangerous. They're kind of hitting what they say, 10 years to mastery, but they're hitting at 22 because a lot of them have been training since they're 12, 13 years old and training all of MMA. So, I think this will be, I think it's a good test for her and a really good, or it'd be a great win for Brogan if she takes it. So,
especially on late.
Yeah, exactly. It's a solid matchup. I don't know so Brogan's from Guam. I don't know what the situation is out in Guam.
Yeah, I think she was originally born in California, but you're right. She went to Guam. I'm assuming it was something military based. My assumption would be, I don't know for a fact on that. But I mean, she is pretty well rounded. I'm not, she's definitely a grinder, but she's pretty well rounded. There's not too many holes in her game. Not that anything's really outstanding, but there's nothing that's really, outstanding that's not good either, which is why she's so solid. With Blanchfield, again, really well rounded. Like you said, she's 21 and she's already, in a position where, I mean, if she wins this fight, she could be in the UFC tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, obviously, she has to fight first, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, she's coming off a highlight reel knockout over Victoria Leonardo, which was nasty. She's actually a prospect in the spotlight on MMA Intel this week, broke down her fighting style. Really good ground game too. And that's what gets overshadowed by the head kick knockout is the fact that she does have such a good ground game, especially for somebody her age. But I kind of agree with what you were saying that a lot of these girls that are up and coming that are young now, are really dangerous. And I think the reason is because people like you and Julie and Roxanne, you guys came into the game and maybe you came from one martial arts background, specifically, whereas in MMA wasn't big for women yet. But, now that MMA is a thing, they don't go to the gym to learn Taekwondo or they don't go to the gym to learn, the Japanese classical jiu-jitsu. They're going and learning MMA, and that's why they're so dangerous.
Absolutely. Well, and women's MMA is lucrative, and I don't think it's necessarily intentional, but they're probably getting a lot more attention from coaches too, because they're viewed as somebody who's a pro fighter coming up, not just somebody who's going to be doing it as for fun, just like everybody did in the 2000s and 90s. Well, like you might make some money, but it's not going to be big money.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was thinking of is because there's not as much women's talent as there is men's talent, because there's just an abundance of men's talent because there's more men in the sport. Gym coaches are seeing girls that are somewhat talented or that they can work with, and they're thinking like, okay, I'll get this girl to my gym and I'll teach her to be really good enough to get to the UFC. Well, she'll get a good enough payday that it's, there's something in it for us and then obviously their managers as well. So yeah, I 100%
totally.
Yeah, Matt.
Totally.
So then we go to the main events. Interesting main event. We have, I'm going to probably butcher her name like I always do, Janaísa Morandin, who is from Brazil. Former atomweight, has now moved to strawweight full-time, it looks like. Taking on, I'm going to butcher her name too, even though I used to have students with her name, Montserrat Ruiz. We used to just call him Monsi, but she goes by her full name. So they got them in a strawweight one. I mean, first question, does the winner of this fight possibly get a strawweight title fight again? Well, I guess it would be vacant now because Kanako Murata did sign with the UFC. So would they possibly jump in against maybe an Emily Ducati for the vacant title?
I would bet. I don't know, but I would bet so. That's going to be a mean fight. Both those girls are mean.
Yeah. I mean,
that's going to be a good fight.
I mean, yeah, there's about 3 or 4 fights on this card that could be, fight of the night. But that one right there, that one's got a guarantee fireworks on it because you're just going to see 2 people biting down in their mouthpiece and moving forward.
Absolutely. That's going to be a barn burner, I think, too.
So what's your analysis on this one?
I've seen a lot of Janaísa. I haven't seen as much of Montserrat. So I don't know that I can accurately say. I think stylistically, I feel like Janaísa has more experience against tough fighters, and that could make a difference, right? Like first time you hit somebody, like run into somebody who's super tough, that can be difficult, even if it's not the first time, if you just haven't done it as much. Janaísa's been in a lot of war type fights.
Yeah.
So I think that could end up tipping it for her.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Like Montserrat, I mean, all but one of her fights is in Mexico. If you look at most of these girls never heard of. They're regional fighters. Her only fight in a big league, which is Invicta, was her debut in 2018, which again, now she's off almost 2 years. Was against UFC veteran Danielle Taylor, and she lost that fight. Now you look at Morandin, obviously, like you said, has more high-level experience, has been in Invicta a few times. Her Invicta record is not very good. It's 1-3, but she hasn't taken an easy fight. I mean, 2 of her losses are to UFC fighters, Jandiroba and Livia Souza, and then Emily Ducati, who, like we just said, is probably going to be the next person fighting for the strawweight title. So, I mean, she hasn't had an easy schedule. So, I mean, some people might say this is a toss-up. I think her experience is probably what's going to be more beneficial here than it is for Monse.
Agreed.
All right, last part of the show here, let's look at the UFC card. We'll look at the top 3 fights. So, because I don't even think they have a bout order on this yet. And if they did, that's because we're taping this a little early. Let's take a look at the first one. It's a welterweight bout. Now, again, if you don't know a whole lot about it, just do the Tanya Evinger where you say explain it, and I'll pick somebody based on it. Okay. She's just like, who does what and who does it better? And I explain, I'll take that person. So we got Vicente Luque, who has always been the dark horse at welterweight. The dude is just an animal. He's taken on Randy Brown, who's had a really good showing in his last few fights. So I don't know if you know a ton about these guys, but what do you think?
Nope. Help me out. Give me their backstory.
Well, I'd say Randy Brown is probably the more exceptional overall natural athlete. He comes from a striking background. He is actually on a 2-fight win streak, and one of them he choked out a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with a triangle. Nobody saw that one coming. He has a lot of power, moves very well on the feet. Definitely an underrated guy at welterweight, but Luque, he's a guy who came on The Ultimate Fighter. If you remember the American Top Team versus the Black Zillions that one season, that was felt like forever ago. He was really like a guy who came on who didn't really have a great record, and then all of a sudden was just blowing past people, just knocking dudes out left and right. I'm looking at his record in the UFC right now. I think he's like 11-3 in the UFC, and he is coming off a win over Nico Price. Before that, he dropped the decision to Stephen Thompson, but let's be honest, Stephen Thompson's challenged for UFC titles.
How many fights has Randy hit rough water yet? How many fights in the UFC does he have?
In the UFC, he's probably, give me a second, he's got about 9 fights, it looks like. 8-9 fights. 9
in the UFC?
Yeah.
Oh. What's his record?
He is 12-3. He was actually knocked out by Nico Price, and Nico Price was on his back. He hammer fisted him while Randy Brown was on top of him and KO'd him. And on the flip side, Vicente Luque beat Nico Price. So do we go with MMA math where?
Yeah, that's hard. Doesn't always work. Yeah. How old are they both?
That I'll have to tell you. I know that Randy Brown's a little bit younger, I believe. He is 30, and Vicente Luque is 28. Actually, I was wrong. Luque's a little bit younger.
Man, that's a tough one. I don't know.
All right, well, I will go with my normal.
I'm woefully ill-prepared.
That's all right. Again, you can't be any worse than Tanya. I love Tanya Evinger, but she didn't know anybody, which was actually made it funny. But Vicente Luque has my pick here. I think he will defeat Randy Brown by knockout because he, for some reason, is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy who just punches extremely hard. Now,
nice.
This one you should know about. Before we got on the air, we had a little chit-chat. Derek Brunson and Edmund Shabazian, as far as I know, this is the co-main event. Derek Brunson has long been in the top 20 in the middleweight division. Edmund Shabazian has not been in the UFC long, but he has busted his way into the top 20 as well. And you said you trained with Edmund a little bit, so why don't you tell me a little bit about it?
He was so I moved to LA for a while. That's actually when I had gone back to Thai boxing, and I would train at GFC a little bit. Because I had one MMA fight out there. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Edmund was still a teenager, and he has shot up since. But he's a sweet kid. I wish nothing but the best for him. Let me look at Derek.
A sweet kid with 3 vicious knockouts in 5 UFC fights. So I'm sorry, not 5 UFC fights. A Dana White Contender Series fight and 4 UFC fights.
Well, yeah. Ooh, I'm gonna guess Edmund takes this. Yeah, 36 is usually when men start slowing down, unfortunately, outside of heavyweight.
Yeah, but I mean, Brunson's last 2 losses are to Israel Adesanya, the champion, and Ronaldo Souza. And he's come back and gotten 2 pretty good wins against Theodoro and Ian Heinisch, which are both,
yeah, that's true. 25. Well, and he's gonna, of course, try to wrestle, right? Take him down.
Mm-hmm. Which, let's not give him a slouch either. Derek Brunson has power in those hands.
Of course. And, all these guys do. I'm just being
I would agree with you. Shabazian is going to have the kickboxing advantage, and Brunson, of course, will have the wrestling advantage.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess.
You're going to take Edmund here?
Let me look. I think so. I'm getting way more into this than probably is necessary.
Well, as far as I know, and the last time I checked the lines, Edmund, I believe, is the favorite right now.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a wide line, but but he's definitely, I think, a favorite as of right now. But those lines change frequently based on what people's betting in. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Ed.
Okay, I will take
little Edmund. Yeah.
I will take Brunson, but I say it will be a very close fight. Now the main event, so we go back to the ladies. So it's not Invicta anymore, but there's still the ladies. We got Holly Holm in the main event here, who's, if you don't know who Holly Holm is, you don't watch fighting. Taking on Irene Aldana, who, it seems like she's finally starting to come into her own a little bit. She took that loss to Raquel. She came back and beat, one of the Brazilian girls who was kind of towards the bottom of the card, but then she knocked out Kaitlin Vieira, who was considered to be the next contender for the 35, strap.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this one?
My first reaction is that Irene's strength is boxing, obviously, from being from Lobo Gym. And Holly's got so much boxing experience. Her ability to create mistakes in Aldana is probably going to be pretty high, and then take advantage of that. I think, just because she has so much experience in what Aldana is good at.
Right.
But I don't know. Aldana's looked really great lately, so I guess we'll see. But there's a significant experience gap in stand up, and considering that both of them, that's their strength.
Right.
I think Holly probably takes it.
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing nobody thinks of: since defeating Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm is 3-5, which I don't think anybody ever remembers. Now, she is coming off a win over Raquel herself, but here's her 5 losses, which is why there's no shame in what happened. A knockout loss to Amanda Nunes, who I think everyone would consider the best female fighter of all time at this point, even better than Cyborg, just based on resume. Holly lost to Cyborg, lost to Germaine, lost to Shevchenko, and lost to Miesha Tate. Those are 5 of the best female fighters probably in the sport at the time she fought them.
Yeah.
So
well then, yeah, I would make an argument too. Though I think Shevchenko is. I mean, imagine if because she's little, man. Like, imagine if she was bigger.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's up there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm a huge Shevchenko fan. Before the UFC signed her, I was begging them to sign her because I was like, this girl is going to be legit. And I mean, her first win in the UFC was over Sarah Kaufman. That was her debut. That doesn't happen very often.
Well, she had some like 50 kickboxing fights, kickboxing and Muay Thai fights. But let's see here. Yeah. I'm going to go with home, but it could go the other way, I guess. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched a ton recently, so.
I'm going with Holly Holm. I'm
going on paper.
I'm playing devil's advocate by saying that she has lost 5 of her last 8. But, I mean, the wins that she does have are against legit opponents, too. I mean, you could argue Betch Koheda is not super legit, but she did knock her the hell out.
She's tough, though.
She's tough.
Yeah.
She looked like she punted her head off. She did pretty much dominate Megan Anderson and dominate her on the ground, and I was there for that fight. And then and Raquel Pennington in her last fight, she beat her. And Raquel, I mean, talk about somebody who maybe doesn't have the most sexy record, but her list of wins is impressive, you know.
Yeah, very much.
I'm going to take Holly Holm. Like you said, you have a boxer versus a boxer, and who has the better credentials? Holly Holm is a world champion multiple times. She will win this fight. I think she'll probably knock out Aldana. And I think that'll probably be the main event right there.
I think so too.
Well, perfect. We end on agreement. Isn't that nice? So, before we go, Kaitlin, first off, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Guys, we will have an interview right up on Combat Press, not just the video. This won't be on there, the predictions, obviously. We'll just talk about her other stuff. Before we go, though, is there anything you'd like to plug, the gym, anything you got, and where can we find you on social media, et cetera? Please.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. First, I'd like to thank my sponsors, Zebra Mats and Menacing Valor, for always being there and supporting me through this journey. It's been a blast. Big thank you to the guys down at M Theory and Ishmael Bentley for helping me get ready, Ryan Murray at the Striking Institute, and Jacob Volkman for coming in.
Oh, Jacob Volkman. Haven't heard that name in a while.
He's been helping me work on some of the clinch and wrestling stuff.
Perfect. So, I mean, there's not too many guys that I can think of, especially in his weight class, who are better than that. So,
yeah.
And then where can we find you on social media?
Oh, I am at Kaitlin Youngify on Instagram or Kaitlin_Young on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook as myself. I am not cool enough to do the Snapchat thing, so that's it.
Snapchat's cool?
TikTok, no.
That's news to me. All right, I'm going to quickly plug myself, and then we can sign off here. Same plugs as every week, guys. Big Riles MMA on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, but I probably won't be your friend. In terms of writing, you can find me on Combat Press. Big shout out to Rob Tatum and Brian Henderson for continuing to put up with my ass, who maybe writes like once a month for them. You can go to my website, MMA Intel, for new scouting reports every week, updates to rankings every week. If you like prospect material, we got it. We got the we have the up-to-date Dana White Contender Series roster and fights, which not a lot of places have right now, so please check that out as well. Other than that, I can't think of too much else that I'm doing these days. So again, thank you very much for stopping on, Kaitlin, and here comes my normal rude sign outs. Make sure you watch Invicta. It is Thursday on UFC Fight Pass. UFC with Aldana and Home. That'll be on ESPN Plus on Saturday. So for Kaitlin Young, I'm Riley Kontek saying enjoy the fights, be good to each other, and go fuck yourselves.